see here is much more than just another new car. This is a piece of history, the dawn of a new era. You see, the Pro Ceed GT is Kia's first ever hot hatchback. It's described by the company as the most eagerly anticipated car in its entire history. I'm old enough to remember dreadful cars like the Schumer and the Mentor, but nowadays things could not be more different. With cars like the Picanto, the Cee'd and the Sportage, Kia has shown it has what it takes to make cars that compete with the very best from all over the world. But even so, entering the hot hatch market is a really bold move for the company. Think of all the classic hot hatches, the 205 GTI, the Golf GTI. They're made by European manufacturers. Can Kia really muster its way into a market where it has absolutely no track record? To find out, we've come to France and to one of the greatest driving roads in Europe, the Route Napoleon, which runs from here on the Mediterranean coast near Cannes, up and over the Alps through some of the country's most beautiful scenery on its way to Grenoble. As the name implies, this route retraces the steps of the Emperor Napoleon when he returned from exile almost 200 years ago in a bid to regain power. And although Kia won't thank me for the comparison, I do think that the little Emperor and this big car company have something in common. Just as Napoleon came here with enormous ambitions, so Kia has really bold plans to take on and shake up the European establishment. Can they do it? Let's hit the road and find out. Even before you fire up the engine in this car, you can see that Kia has been doing its hot hatch homework. By the time you settle into these wonderful Recaro sport seats, you'll have clocked the way the car looks and been really impressed. More than anything, it's the attention to detail that really impresses you about this car. They're the ice cube daytime running lights, for example, the black gloss details around lots of the bits of the car's body. Then once you get inside, you'd admire the part leather upholstery and this red stitching that contrasts with what is otherwise a really black cabin. But for me, and this is coming from someone who's not a gadget lover, the icing on the cake is this TFT display in the centre of the dash. By pressing this button on the steering wheel, I can change from conventional analog dials to a more performance orientated display which gives me the speed digitally. I absolutely love it. It's a strange car to sum up, this one really, and it's perhaps easiest to say what it isn't. And despite how we've discussed it before, this isn't really a hot hatch. It's a little softer than that. Although it's quite quick, this isn't a Golf GTI. It's a little softer through the bends, there's more movement in the suspension, and it isn't ultimately as quick. Instead, what this car is a great all-rounder. As Napoleon came through these roads, he must have been terrified, wondering what was around the next corner. Would there be an army? Would there be a militia? As far as I'm concerned, I can't wait to get beyond the next corner. The only frustration is I might want to come back and do it all again. This is a really composed, capable car. It's not too quick for its own good. I can get past the slower moving traffic, which Napoleon wouldn't have had to contend with. The torque in this little thing, it responds so quickly. And it's weird, the biggest compliment I can pay this car is the engine responds almost like a turbo diesel. We're about halfway through the Alpine section now of the Route Napoleon. The Mediterranean coast is long disappeared from that rear view mirror. We've headed up over the pass through Grasse and Castellane, and now we're heading on to the final destination of Napoleon, a town called Grenoble. He came in there a conquering hero, and I think it's fair to say we're going to be looking to arrive there with a smile on our faces too. quite where our journey ends, but for Napoleon, this was the most significant part of his journey, where he and his band of followers met soldiers who came out from Grenoble to meet him. This is called the Pré de la Rencontre in French, literally the field of the meeting. The two sides met, but they met in peace, and as one, they then went together into Grenoble. From here on in, for Napoleon, this was a triumphal march. So here, as we come into Grenoble, we've reached the end of la Route Napoleon, but the Emperor still had a long way to go. So like him, we're going to continue our journey northwards to where it all ended, the battlefield of Waterloo. So here we are, we're now well on our way to the battlefield of Waterloo, and this part of the journey is very, very different to the earlier part. We swapped the mountain roads for motorways, but the car is still really impressive. And if there's one thing that impresses me more than anything else, it's these Recaro seats here. They're so comfortable. These side bolsters are holding me beautifully in position. There's no aching in my back at all. Admittedly, it's not the kind of car that's going to make Jaguar engineers have sleepless nights. There's a bit of wind noise from around the mirrors once you get up to legal limit, and the view over my shoulder isn't really good. But I've got a good enough view through the wing mirrors and through my rear view mirror, and actually this is a very comfortable car. We've still got several hundred kilometres to go, but I've got my Bluetooth on, my iPod plugged in, and some very loud music on the stereo. I think this is going to be a good few hours. So here we are at our journey's end. This is the actual site of the Battle of Waterloo. For Napoleon, as all your history books will tell you, it was the end of his journey too. He lost in battle here, was forced to abdicate, and ended his life in exile. But for Kia, this is just the very beginning. This is the company's first ever hot hatch, its first performance-orientated model. This is a company with huge ambitions. Okay, so it's not quite a Golf GTI, but it really proved itself over this journey. I can hardly believe this is the first time it's tried to create such a car. It proves to me that Kia can go forward. It has what it takes to compete in different areas of the market. It's a tremendous achievement, and Kia, for one, goes on to fight another day.